So I just want to promote a project that's going on. The Pollinator Partnership is putting on their second annual Mite-A-Thon, and it's going to take place between September 8th and the 15th. They want to have beekeepers sample their mites within their hives and upload the data at www.mitecheck.com. The Mite-A-Thon is a tri-national, like Canada, United States, and Mexico, effort to raise awareness about the honeybee colony varroa infestations in North America. And they're going to take this data, it's going to provide a snapshot of varroa mite levels across North America within this 1 week window. So it's going to be really cool just to help visualize the varroa infestation levels across all North America. But the underlying goal of this objective is to just simply get beekeepers to monitor their hives for mites. And we're not just speaking about small producers here. We mean like all producers. All beekeepers need to be monitoring their mites. They need to have a surveillance program in place just to know what's going on within their hives. And then from that, we can kind of put together some kind of a plan to deal with the issue if it's there. Just to start the conversation, just to promote good beekeeping practice here. So this is pretty cool. Here in Manitoba, the Manitoba Beekeepers Association is spearheading this campaign, and we've got together. We have 4 different regional associations here that represent our beekeepers. The Red River Apiarist Association, centralized around Winnipeg. The Brandon Area Beekeepers Association, which represents beekeepers around the Brandon area. So there's a new little beekeeping club around Morden, the South Central Beekeepers Association, and the Manitoba Honey Cooperative, who represent beekeepers right across the prairie provinces here. So they're participating in this too. And so I just want to promote this a little bit, and I want to show you just how I'm sampling my hives for mites. I'm going to show you a few videos here, and once I get my my mite counts, I'm going to take that and I'm going to upload my data onto www.mitecheck.com and participate in this project. So yeah, I would encourage everyone to go out to their hives and shake some bees, count some mites, and upload the data onto this website, and just see how many beekeepers we can get participating in this project and see what it leads to. So our job as beekeepers at this time of year is to control the varroa mite. And to do that, we got to know how many mites there are in our hives, and we work on thresholds. So what I do is my springtime, summertime threshold throughout the year is 1%. I want my hives with my mite counts under 1%. As we approach into fall, my threshold increases a little bit because our nest in the fall time is starting to shrink because that queen's reduced her laying. They're focusing on that winter nest. So we'll have a smaller brood nest for those mites to hide in. So as that winter brood nest hatches out through fall into winter, we're going to get an increase in mite counts within our colonies. So we can expect an increase of our mite counts. This is really important to acknowledge this. About this time of year, I want about that 1% or so. As we drift into fall, our mite counts are going to increase, and we're going to recognize that I want my mite counts to remain under a certain threshold number, which for me is under 2.5%. When I first started beekeeping, my threshold within September, October was 5%. But since we seem to be influenced with more viral infections now that ride on the mite into the bees, I've had to lower that number down to be able to get my hives through winter properly. So I use a 2.5% mite count. It is very important that we watch and monitor our hives for varroa levels. If we have a high varroa count within our colonies through the summer, as those colonies drift into fall and that the queen restricts her laying and they're preparing that nest for winter, there isn't going to be as many bees to switch out that colony. There's going to be an increase in mites per bee, which increases the exposure of that hive to viral infections. And if that colony has too many mites in it, which influences that colony with too much viral infection, you're going to get a massive colony crash. And this is what you hear in the fall about, colonies crashing. They just simply they die, just because the disease overwhelms the colony, mostly because the mites overwhelm the bees with virus. So take that in a little bit, and we have to acknowledge this. So we have to track our colonies from middle to late summer throughout into fall to be able to determine what's going on in that colony disease-wise. I'm taking a sample of bees as close to that brood nest as I possibly can, get as many young bees as I can. The young bees is typically where the varroa mite's going to be lingering, it's going to be hanging on. So that gives me my count. What I do is I take about 6 colonies per yard, and I find my averages, okay? I look at my operational average, and then I determine whether or not I need to do a treatment throughout my whole apiary or not. And that's what I do. For you bigger guys, I know you guys are all monitoring your mites and keeping a close eye on things, because we're all experienced at this. You send out one of your best trained guys to the yards, find those numbers for you. I'm sure you're all doing that. For you hobby types, it is really good practice just to, when you're going out there, just to know what it is. Just take a little sample of bees, see what your count is, and then you can exercise the proper steps needed to be able to control the infection within that colony, whichever way you choose. The guys that I'm really focusing on right now are the sideline, the smaller type beekeeper who's growing, like they say, 50 hives up to 200, 300, 400 hives. You guys are a growing business. Typically, you guys have a job on the side. You guys are really busy. I've been through all these steps too. I know exactly what it's like. We have time restraints, not enough time in the day. We got all this honey to extract or strip the honey off, and then we forget about the hives a little bit until we get into September, October. Then we realize there's problems. So I just want to reinforce the importance of getting out to your apiary, now, and taking that sample and knowing where your colonies are at. We have to get a starting point somewhere here. This is our starting point, and then we can create a plan moving forward from now. If there's one thing that you can do to help your colony stay alive, is to start monitoring mites right now and then develop some kind of a plan. So I'm really targeting you sideline guys, because you guys are at the biggest risk right now for not physically having enough time to be able to do all these steps and procedures. So I just want to reinforce that this step is just as important as feeding your colonies protein or sugar, or putting a new queen into that colony to create that fantastic nest. This is probably one of the more important steps, is monitoring your apiary to be able to get a handle on knowing what your disease levels are. If your disease levels are too high, all the rest of the work is for naught. So here we are in the bee yard, and here I've identified I'm going to sample this colony here. I forgot my smoke today. We'll just go without it. But what I got here is rubbing alcohol. Okay. I have this cheap little Tupperware tub. That's what I'm going to dump my bees into. A little measuring scoop, and my mite shaker. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my rubbing alcohol, and this is what dislodges the mites off the bees. It's very important, so I put a little bit in there. And we can reuse this. This is expensive stuff, but we're going to reuse this throughout our sampling through our yards. Now this tub, what we're going to use this for is we're going to tap the bees into this tub, and we're going to separate out the young bees within our sample. And I'm going to show you what that's all about, and just a little scoop to measure out the bees. Okay, so we're going to go down into the colony, and I want to identify the young bees, but I don't want to grab the queens, because we're just defeating the purpose if we kill off the queen, right? So I'm going to go after a frame close to the brood nest. A frame of brood. I've been feeding this yard, so there's syrup in here and pollen. I'm just doing a quick look for the queen because I don't want to sample the queen. So I don't see her. Okay, I guess just do a quick little tap. I don't need many bees in there. So what's going to go on inside this tub right now is I've dumped my bees in, and the forager bees, the older bees, will fly off. And what's going to be left is with the nurse bees. Okay, so I got to grab my sample here. Just going to scoop up the bees into my little measuring cup and dump them in. This is my mite shaker. It's got a leaking gasket here. So I want to shake these guys roughly for about, I don't know, a minute or so. And what's going to happen is the rubbing alcohol is going to dislodge the mites that are on the bees. The rubbing alcohol instantly kills the bees and kills the mites. And what we want to achieve here is just getting the mites off the bees. As we shake, 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 shake. And then I just want to swish the bees down into the bottom to get my mite count. And when I look underneath here to take a look at my mites, I don't see any mite counts in here, but you'll be able to count your mites in the bottom of this little shaker. So in regards to field testing, about one scoop like this is roughly 150 to 200 bees. So let's say about 200 bees or so if you take a good scoop. So you're going to be counting your mites over 200. So you want to find your percentage that way. So if I'm counting 2 mites in the bottom here, if we roughly calculate 200 bees into this container, you're looking at 1% mite infestation. What I do is I take my bees and my mites and I put them all back into one container. I take my sampling through my whole yard, and then I count my mites and I weigh out 100 bees, and then I figure out how many bees I have in that sample, and then I get a hard number that way. So I'm just going to do a mite wash now they got them opened up. I don't want to wash the queen. Got my little shaker. Here's some rubbing alcohol. So I don't want to shake the queen, so what I'm going to do is just look for her very quickly here. So this brood is all hatched out, pretty much hatched out, which will mean that these mites are all out from underneath the cappings, which will make our surveillance a lot more accurate. Oxalic acid treatment at this time, because there is no brood in this hive, or very little. We could start oxalic acid treatments now and target these mites. So what I want to do is just take a quick look in here, see if I shook the queen in here, because sometimes you do. And there she is. So I'm just going to pick her up gently. Put her inside the colony. Okay, so then just take a couple scoops here. Get about 200 bees or whatever in there. See if I have any mites. And we'll want to shake the bees, you know, for about 30 seconds or so. My thresholds this time of year, when the brood nest is hatching out, I want to be under 2.5% for sure. My threshold used to be over 5 about 10 years ago, but there's so much chance of viral infection now that I find that 5% is too high. I dropped my threshold down to 2.5%, and that seems to have helped. And there's 0 mites in there, which is really good. So I got my mite wash data, and I'm just going to go to their website now. www.mitecheck.com. And this just talks a little bit about the Mite Check survey, blah blah blah. And here I'm in Canada, so I'm going to change to Canada. So you can see there's some participation already across the country. We want more dots. Okay, so we want to go to take the survey. Okay, I'm going to enter my information here. Okay, so I am Miami, Manitoba, Canada. Number of hives in yard, 40 I guess. My testing method, alcohol wash. Have you moved the majority of these colonies in the last 2 months? Yes, but just locally. Okay, today is the 8th. Mite samples. I've done lots. Let's say 5. Mite count. 1. I've had a lot of 0 mite counts. Actually, I haven't found a mite, but just for 1 in there. Mite should be numbers per mites per 100 bees rounded to the nearest whole number. Got it. Management methods you have used in the last 2 months. Apivar, standby, oxalic acid vaporization, just the 2. Management methods you are considering in the next 2 months. Well, my mite counts are so low that I'm not going to have to do anything immediately this fall, but I am going to do an oxalic acid vaporization. Well, I can do it any time now because my hives are broodless. So we're going to start that either next week or the week after. Okay, I agree to share my email address with the Pollinator Partnership so I can receive email reports from the Pollinator Partnership about the Mite-A-Thon results. Yes, I want that. Okay, so I'm going to submit the survey. Done and done. Just take a look at some of the results so far. Now this is change it to Canada. We have 2,300 total colonies surveyed. I should be in the map right in here. A lot of colonies are very low mite counts by the looks of it. And then we get some honesty coming in here. And if 11, that's pretty high. So these guys, when they do test their hives and you're finding your counts from 3% and up, you guys are going to have to do something about your mite counts, about your mite levels, get some kind of a control going on within this area of infestation. Under 2.5%, there's going to be less damage, less exposure to viral infections, and likely be okay. Just looking at some of the management methods here. Drone comb removal is popular. There's the Apistan, the old standby. Hardly anybody uses that. Apivar, I thought there'd be more beekeepers using Apivar. That's what I use. And Mite-A-Way Quick Strips looks very popular. Oxalic acid, and then a bunch of other ones here. So there's a good diverse mite management method used across Canada here. Just looking at a snapshot of the data collection, and we're getting it right from Nova Scotia across to British Columbia. So we're getting a lot of results coming in, and I am colorblind, so I can't tell the difference between all these codes here. But oh, I can just read it here. 0 to 3. Okay, so a lot of these colonies are testing low. Let's see, what's this one here? 4 to 5. Some Halifax. What's this one here? Oh, this guy's up pretty high. So that is really cool. Our intention is to get more dots going across the entire country, try to get more hives reported, and see where this project leads.